All right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app. Your home smart speaker up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, Doug, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. How are we feeling this afternoon?
Lots of change, eh?
Lots of change. Yeah, changes in the air. Sheldon Keefe, to no one's surprise, I think most people were anticipating this, became official today. He was fired by the team. You know, I love the phrasing of, relieved of duties and we're moving in a different direction.
You're fired.
He was fired. Yeah, he was fired today, and he was fired with 2 years left on his deal, so he's going to have a lot of security. I thought he handled it with incredible class, the video he posted online.
Yeah.
Really, classy goodbye by Sheldon Keefe. I'm sure Sheldon was well aware when he left the building on Saturday night. When he left Boston, I think he was well aware. When they were down 3-1, he was probably thinking this is really not a good place to be in right now.
Not a fun place to be for any coach, but when that phone rang or however the transaction happened, the man was not surprised.
Yes.
When you do that much not winning with the team and you can't get them over the hump, he's probably thought it was going to come earlier than this. Like, there's how many playoff series and playoff years are we talking? Up 3-1 against Montreal, Columbus in the bubble. And it's just the sign of the times, guys. Like, we talk about the league being watered down. Like, to me, that's the reason why coaches get fired. There's not enough good players in the league. And GMs and owners are in fantasy land thinking that they're putting together a squad. Every team's got 5 or 7 guys that should be in the American Hockey League, for crying out loud. That's why these guys are getting gassed. The league's the watered down league, not enough good players.
Well, it's going to get worse because they're going to go to 34
no kidding. We got to get Houston. We got to get Utah settled.
Atlanta's got to get back in. Got to get Atlanta back in.
Of course.
It's great for jobs, though. Like, it's great.
It is.
The crazy thing is, like, coaches, I understand their complaints. And it is crazy, the carousel of coaching in the National Hockey League.
Really is.
It's absurd. Yet there's a lot of recycling. Sheldon Keefe will get another job. He'll be a head coach in the NHL again.
Probably
I think he knows
next year.
that. Probably next year. He might, by the end of next week, he might get a job. There's a ton of vacancies around the NHL still. Like, he's going to get calls. I think Pierre LeBrun reporting he's already on the radar down in Jersey. And he'll get back into the swing of things. And if they go to 33 and 34 and 36 teams, it's just going to be a cycle, man. Like, Lindy Ruff had to wait, 3 or 4 months? Travis Green was the interim 3 weeks ago in Jersey, and now he's got a new job in Ottawa. That's the way the coaching carousel works. So it's ruthless. It's tough. It's what they signed up for. They're very well compensated. And Sheldon's certainly not surprised.
Yeah. I think you could argue that he might have thought it was coming last summer with the change of the manager. Right? Like, that would have been easy for Brad Treliving to come in and go, I don't know you. I don't have any allegiance to you. I'm going to let you go right now. I don't have to sign you to an extension.
Jamie, that's why I never have a problem when a new coach or the new GM comes in. You just relieve the coach of his duties anyway. I'm not playing the wait and see game. I don't want to spend an hour and a half on a dock somewhere to get to know you. I want my own guy, and then I don't have to do this.
You think he regrets it? You think Treliving regrets not doing it? Or forget Treliving, Shanahan, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment?
I have no idea if they regret it or not, but it probably would have been an easier thing just to bring in your own guy, but I don't know what the circumstances were or who was available. And same as Dwayne Casey, Hayes, I talked about it on Monday. I hate when you wheel the coach out there for media press day, and you basically have it in your head that you're going to gas the guy.
Oh, they knew he was gone by Monday.
No, I know.
Of course
Why wheel him out there?
But the only thing that I could say is if you are unable to put your 100% stamp on your team, do you want to change the coach right away? Like, that would be like if Treliving took over at this time right now, like, and that's where he's going to put his new coach in. Last year, he was jumping on a moving train. You're trying to sort things out and all that. You could easily go, here's the coach I want because I don't have a relationship with Sheldon. But you're already signing the players that the organization wants to sign anyways. Like, that's where it might not have meant a difference, if that makes sense. Like, a new coach might have been the same outcome here with the same players. That's really where
it very well could have. And I mean, ultimately, the players are responsible for 95% of what happens on the ice. Coaches are important. They're very important. And I think what needed to happen, and I said this on Monday, and I'll continue to say it, is it needs to feel fresh and new here. Like the window needs to close on the previous era, and a new window has to open, and that will include carryover players. Obviously, Matthews will be here, Willie will be here. Maybe, Camp and Yarncroke and Riley and Benoit. Like, there will be guys. It's not like they're clearing house and they're starting from scratch.
Right.
But it needs to feel and sound different. And the coach was going to play a big role in that. The coach speaks every single day, And I thought Sheldon Keefe, for a rookie NHL coach, handled the heat of Toronto really well in terms of, he never looked as if he was, pissed off with questioning. He was never, to my knowledge, he treated everyone incredibly well, and went about his business. And sometimes he'd step in it. He'd say things that maybe he'd regret or that would lead to people overanalyzing, ourselves included, and wondering why would you say that or whatever. But, a 5-year run, they were actually very patient with Sheldon Keefe. Like, compared to other teams around the league and other coaches, very patient. And I think
after that
speaks,
Montreal series, it could have easily been seen
absolutely.
Later.
You lose. You have a 3-1 lead against Montreal. You're the kings of the Canadian division, and you blow that after you lost to Columbus the year before.
Yes,
they absolutely could have made that decision. And hindsight is 20/20. But if you had have done it then, maybe Bruce Cassidy's the coach here. Maybe Peter DeBoer's up here, Peter Laviolette.
Right.
There's been some really good coaches available over the last 2 or 3 years that they decided to stick with Sheldon, and they believed in Keefe. And I honestly, I think that speaks to the guy at the top, Brendan Shanahan, who's been very loyal to his people. Like, very, very loyal. Like, he's a believer in his players. He was a believer in Sheldon. He brought in Keefe with others into the organization, 9 years ago? Like, almost a decade ago. Like, Shanahan got here. He brought in Dubas pretty quickly. He brought in Lou pretty quickly. And Keefe was coaching the Marlies almost right off the bat. Like, that's all under the guise of Brendan Shanahan, who has had a lot of time and shown a lot of loyalty to people. And I'm sure they appreciate that greatly. And as a result, this is what comes of it at some point. The other shoe's going to drop, and it did today.
And you know what? Like, he did get a severance package. Technically, it's 2 years, right?
Yeah.
If he wants to sit, his video looked beautiful. He looked like he was sitting on a beautiful dock somewhere.
You think he shot that today or 3 days ago? Like, do you think he knew 3 days ago?
They
didn't say to him, "You're fired, but don't tell anyone for 3 days."
I know, but he's not a dummy.
I was thinking about it last night, guys. Like, it's so difficult to win, and I think Leafs Nation, they're so passionate, and they think change just. They thought when getting Austin Matthews and Marner, and they finally got the Golden Nuggets, that it was just guaranteed success. They could bring in Joel Quenneville next year, have a completely different roster, set records like Boston did, and get bounced in the first round because a team played on. They could get Florida in the first round next year, and it's like just because there's it doesn't like it's so hard to win, and they have failed. Let's not kid ourselves. They haven't created their own breaks. They haven't dominated teams. They haven't had their big guns score on the power play or timely scoring, but. They could change it all up, man. It could be totally different, and the result won't change. Like, they need Lady Luck on their side. They need their players to be different, their players to play better. But they change the coach. But if they don't change the players, and I know it's awfully difficult, their hands are tied to some degree. But it would be crazy.
Mandatory.
Mandatory.
Player personnel has to change too.
Player personnel.
It has to.
I agree. I think today is step one. Of you name it, how many changes that are going to take place, 10, 12, and I'm not just players, just everything. Like, the new coach is going to come in. You're going to have have a new staff come in, or you're going to keep some of the old staff. Like Brad Treliving obviously made the first move here today. It's Sheldon Keefe is relieved. Now you start a coach search. You're going to have to build out your coaching staff, and then you take a look at the roster. What did Chris Pronger say? Roster construction? I can't remember. He had a polished version of, roster.
Poor use of resources, I believe.
So whatever. He's got to sort that out because your team needs to be deeper and better next season to have a run at it here with Matthews in his prime, with Nylander in his prime. So that's and Marner in his prime and Tavares is on the back end type of thing. Now you decide who you have coming back. That's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, that exactly. The relieving the coach of his duties is easy. It's paperwork.
No
Like
kidding.
it's not, and it's a move that just had to happen. I mean, everyone can see. Sheldon Keefe would be the first one to tell you. Sheldon's probably breathing easier now, being like, all right, enough. Like, I knew it was coming. Somebody else's problem. And he knows what's under the hood. Like I would love to get into a truth serum competition with Sheldon Keefe right now and tell me, like, what do you really think? Because afterwards, everyone says the right thing. We've spoken to so many players who have left and said, those guys are going to win. We love them. They're awesome. It's great. And do you really think that? Like, I'm not questioning their character. I'm not questioning if they like the guys. But do you really believe they're going to win?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, do you really look at them and say, no, those guys are winners? Because it's got to be difficult to really believe that. Like, and that's just their own doing. That's the position they've played themselves into. Right. Matthews and Marner and Nylander, they've been here for 8 years. This team has allowed them to go to the playoffs every single year of their career. That's a huge benefit. Like, McDavid didn't get that. McKinnon certainly didn't get that. There's a lot of players that had to wait 3, 4, 5 years. Go talk to Brady Tkachuk. He's never played a playoff game. These guys have had enough around them and enough resources and enough stability within the organization from the top to the bottom to at least punch a ticket. Were they always expected to win? No. Were they always going to win? Of course not. But they are the ones that own the reputation. Keefe gets to go and change his now. He'll get another job somewhere. I'm certain of that. And we'll see what he's got. And I'll bet you he's going to take a lot from this because what a way to learn on the job. First NHL job's in Toronto, of all places. And he's seen it all for the most part. But now, you went through Babcock. You went through Keefe. Dubas is out. Trey Living's in. You've had different staff. You've had different supporting cast in terms of associate coaches, power play, penalty kill, defensively minded, offensively minded. You've had different coaches, different goalie coaches. You've had it all. And now
players too, Brian.
That's what I mean. The players. Yes, exactly. Outside of the 5 guys who have been here forever, Riley included with the core 4, everything else has changed for the most part.
Right.
Year by year, $1 million player, 1 year deals. Lots of change.
Lots of change.
And it was, hey, we're going to bring in mentor. It's Joe Thornton. Remember, Joe Thornton was on the team.
Yes. Patrick Marleau was on when these guys were here.
Jason Spezza. You brought in mentors. You brought in veteran guys and, passed the torch off. Ultimately, for this team to break through, it's going to have to look differently. I don't know what that is. That's up to Brad Treliving and his management group, but it's going to have to look differently. And to O's point, there's no guarantee that'll happen. You run into look at what Florida did last night. They looked like they were back to normal type of thing.
They looked pretty good last night.
So, you can run into the. Well, hey, the bet was only one game.
Yeah, no one said that they weren't going to win game 2.
My philosophy was they won game 7 in Boston, and they're going to continue on the high and continue the run.
Yes.
And Florida was sleepy because they were sitting around for a week, and that's exactly what happened in game 1 is Florida lost that game because they were rusty and Boston wasn't. And ask the Edmonton Oilers, too. They were no good last night. They were sleeping.
Wow. Vancouver should have been rusty, too. And they were down 4-1. And what a comeback last night.
Yeah,
4-1. What is with these leagues?
Yeah, it's just like Dallas the night before.
I know. February sleepy night, maybe you can cough one up like that. But playoff hockey?
That's so inexcusable.
Dude,
you can't. It's so crushing, man.
Vancouver was the better team.
They were way better last night.
They played better.
Edmonton was terrible last night.
I thought they were bad. They didn't. The only reason Edmonton was up 4-1 is Sheloff wasn't wearing his pads for the first half of the game.
Right. Well, the Hyman goal was backdoor kind of. I thought it was like when Hyman scored 2 minutes in on the power play, I'm like, this is going to be 7-0 tonight. Yeah. That's how I felt watching. I don't know if you guys felt the same way.
I felt the same way, but this was the dagger goal here.
That's a terrible goal.
I thought to myself, they're going to put in DeSmith right there. And I thought, okay, they're going to put DeSmith in. Yeah. And give him a little house money and put him back in the net.
I was deflected. Come on, give Shiloh
You
some
can't
love.
go through the body and like that.
You can't give up that goal.
Bottom line is that kid got the win.
Yes.
And you know what? We'll see what Edmonton's got because
David
respond. Not getting a shot on goal.
He wasn't any good last night.
No,
97, man.
None
of them were.
Circle anybody on that team outside of Hyman, and he got 2 goals, but everybody else stunk. And that Boston team, like that, that Florida team, like that
They
was
showed
a
up.
war. How about the Pastrnak fight? I love
man, I got so much time for David Pastrnak right now because that's the stones it takes to come out and drop your gloves. Like, there's different fights, as you guys know. If you get into a spontaneous fight, you can grab and seatbelt, and maybe the ref's right there. When you come out of the box effectively and drop your gloves and square off, that's a totally different fight.
You're on an island.
That's an island. That's like MSG, and you're coming down the aisle type fight.
Brian, they came out of the box. He went and talked to the coach.
I know. I love it.
The coach goes,
Monty's go ahead.
There's the conversation. And you want to go, you want to go. And I don't know if you watched Matthew Tkachuk's media, and he gave lots of props to Pasta, said, like, listen, I give him respect. It's two warriors trying to go at it, and we're not known for our fighting. But look at him. Monty, he wants to fight me. Okay, go him.
Go him.
Go him.
Go ahead.
And he comes off the bench and
Monty.
I'll tell you, Monty had the red face. He spent a little time in the sun down there, hasn't he?
Monty, too many days off in Florida. A couple of days off for old Monty down there. Yeah, no, I got a lot of time and respect for Pastrnak because he's not a fighter. I don't even know if he's got any fights in his career. He's probably got one or two.
That might have been his first one, man.
Probably like that it was. You know, again, gloves fly off, some guy gets hit from behind, 5-on-5, everyone's grabbing someone. But that's like a fight. That's like a junior tryout. I got to try to make the team. How about we drop the gloves and fight? Like, that was a significant one. And, both guys get up. They're both good. They move on. And I think it's symbolic, like, both ways. Like, you know what you're going to get out of Tkachuk. You know what you're getting out of him. And Marchand dropped him last night with that hit. That was a massive hit. And, he was in the mix. The Panthers showed up. The Panthers later beating him on them last night. But you're aware that Tkachuk's going to do that. But when the whole team, both teams are going at it, I like that Pastrnak was willing to engage. I mean, we know with other teams, the one we talk about here in this town all the time, that would not have happened.
I thought to myself,
there's no
guys,
way that would have happened.
Which one of those four would have done that?
None of them. Zero of them would have done what he did last night.
They've shown it. I'm not going to get into just dragging on these guys, but they
would not have done it, though. The answer is no, none of them would have. No,
like,
none of them would have.
Like, you kept hearing and you're reading stuff and all of that as to, like, the respect that Pastrnak has from his teammates for doing something like that. Because usually when it's a brawl and there's 7 guys left on the bench, it's usually the skilled guys who don't fight.
Right.
They're the ones that have picked the gloves up and moved the sticks around and all that. And the bottom 6, they go and fight, and the defensemen get involved and all of that. And it's usually, 6 guys left on the bench on either side and the goalies, and that's it. Pastrnak, like, I got a lot of respect for it.
Yeah.
I don't, but the scary thing is he gets popped there because, Tkachuk, like,
could happen.
It could happen, or breaks a hand and something like that. Then, we'll be talking about fighting and
could go the other way too, right? Like, it's funny how with Tkachuk, because he's a Tkachuk and he plays the way he plays, no one's like, wow, what about him? He could have hurt himself. Right. Like, everyone just naturally accepts it and they're cool with it. Why would Pastrnak feel like he's got to be isolated or treated differently? And I guess it was his second career fight, and he was asked about the whole thing post-game, and here's what Pastrnak had to say.
You are in the game, it's a lot of emotions, and, I'm not afraid of him, to be honest. I can take a punch, and I do anything for these guys here.
Pretty good answer, man.
Damn good answer.
Pretty good answer.
The only answer.
Yeah, the only answer. Pretty good answer. But you got to act before you're going to give an answer like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, you actually got to do it, and then you can give that answer. Because if you say it afterwards, I'm not afraid of him, and then you turn it down, well, maybe you are.
Maybe
right?
you were.
maybe you actually were because you turned him down. But if you accept the tilt, you can say whatever you want afterwards. And that series tied at 1, and Vancouver, Edmonton, they go game 2 tomorrow night. It's tough for people on the East Coast, man. It's tough. That's a late start, late game, but
dude,
it's all
anything
good.
past 9:30 is a tough grind.
It's a really tough grind.
I crawled out of that studio last night at 1:45 a.m.
Oh, noodles.
All I could think of it, you guys know, you're sitting there watching it, and it's 4-2 for Edmonton. I'm like, okay, we're doing our chat points and that, and I'm like, 4-3.
Yep.
I'm like, please,
4-4.
no overtime.
Like,
4-4.
Yeah, like that's
the
triple
right one.
overtime. That's 5 a.m. You're walking out of there.
And you're just going, okay. And they score to make it 4-4. and the people that you're with, there's some swear words because you're like, oh my God, like
Here
now
we go.
the whole narrative's changed too, right? The
Right.
storyline was, geez, Vancouver, they couldn't get a save here and there, and then all of a sudden it's like, geez, Edmonton's out to lunch, not playing well, now shutting McDavid down, all of that. Everything shifts immediately within a 5-minute stretch.
Yeah, it did. I mean, Zadorov and Garland, it was within a minute of each other.
32
and
seconds or
32
something
seconds.
crazy.
And like that Garland goal,
Can't allow that goal.
Yeah, Skinner.
Can't allow that goal. It's a
Taking
bad
some
goal.
heat today, man. I mean, they didn't. What did they go? 23 minutes without a shot last night. The Oilers,
Yeah.
the Oilers were terrible.
They played
But
terrible,
that
but you
goal,
can't give up that goal. Like
that
to
place
a man,
was rocking, man. Imagine being down
Dude, was
4-1
it
and your team
ever.
comes back and wins in reg. How awesome that would have. That's a terrible goal.
That was gonna miss. That was gonna hit the sideboard. Like it was gonna hit the side of the rink. It looked like, and it hit his pad and went backwards into the net.
It's you know what? It's a bad goal, and he needed to be better. The Oilers needed to be better.
Yeah.
Vancouver deserves a lot of
They
credit.
sure
Rick
do, man.
Tocchet, that team. I said it before. Like you can't sleep on that team. I still think Edmonton can beat them, but this isn't a rollover.
Maybe you guys are coming around. You said Edmonton yesterday. The both of you were going to smoke them.
You hold on a second. You said it in 5. We can go back to the tape. Jeff O'Neill said Edmonton in 5.
That's right.
You did
That's accurate.
Hayes. That's Hayes.
100%.
I said defiantly, you've got to give some love to the Vancouver Canucks.
No,
I did not say 5
This
or
guy's got
less.
amnesia. This
Yeah,
guy's
I
got
know.
amnesia.
Man. We need like a stenographer in here, and I'm just.
You know what you need? Yeah, we got to go to the tape all
We
the
need
time.
the tape.
Like,
we need a
you know how-
stenographer in here, just everything that guy says, like jotting it down for the record.
Twitter has community notes. We need ODog notes because that's what it is. Like you said that they are going to steamroll them in 5. And I was like, no, I think Vancouver's a pretty good team. Like I wouldn't sleep on that.
I still like Edmonton in the series, but they're 0-5 against Vancouver this year. They went 0-4 in the regular season.
Yeah.
And not only did they lose, they got smoked. And last night, that's a tough way to start. I guess Rick Tocchet was speaking with the media this afternoon, and Silovs, he claims it's high maintenance. The 23-year-old has asked for blackout blinds so he can sleep better. And Tocchet said, quote, I'll do the blackout blinds, but Ian Clark, the goalie coach, can handle the other stuff, end quote. So this guy's becoming like a legend, like a third-string goalie.
Where does he want the blinds? In his condo? He's asking Rick Tocchet to install them?
Yeah, I wonder
What
if
is
he's
going
staying in a
on?
hotel or something. And he's gone to Talk or someone and said, hey, I need blinds.
But why not guest services? Like, why is it Rick Tocchet responsible for
Why
the
do you go to the
blackout
coach?
blind?
Rick
Why would you
Tochet's
go
problem.
to the coach?
Hey, Rick, I have to have a word with you.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't like to hear that because you know what? When the bubble bursts, they're going to go, you know what? Your blackout blinds, you can go sit on the bench with them.
But why wouldn't you want him comfortable right now? Right?
Of
Like that
course
guy's,
you want
he's
him
your
comfortable.
guy. Like he's like this guy goes in against Nashville. That game 4 against the Preds. Remember we said after
Shut
that,
him
like
out.
those are the type of games where legendary status starts to build up. Like a legendary run, you look back and say, man, they were down 4-1 to Edmonton in game 1, and they won that game. And Silovs went in there in game 6 in Nashville and shut them out. And Besser had a hat trick, and they scored 2 within a minute and a half and stole a game in Nashville. Like that's what Vancouver's doing. Their whole year has been a storybook. Like the whole season has been Shakespearean, considering what the expectations were. And now they're up 1-0 on Edmonton. And I noticed Struddy really quiet today. Nothing from Strud. Ryan Rishaug will join us in a couple of hours. We'll get his take on it, what we can expect going into game 2 tomorrow night, and more on Sheldon Keefe being fired this morning by the Leafs. Where do they go from here? Is it simply just Craig Berube's job? That's what a lot of people seem to think. FanDuel's got him as a heavy favorite to get the job. We'll get into that and more. Paul MacLean will join us, who was on Sheldon's staff, longtime NHL coach himself. I'm just seeing the Phoenix Suns fired Frank Vogel, of course. Every coach in NBA, NHL, you just get fired. It's crazy. Frank Vogel fired by the Suns. Darvin Ham was fired by the Lakers.
Well,
it's just
Charles
crazy.
said it last week. He's like, the Lakers and the Suns, they don't win because they suck.
They stink. That's exactly
So what
it.
the hell were those coaches? They're just set up to fail, man.
Yep.
It's a joke.
That's exactly it. Like KD, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and nothing else in Phoenix. What is a coach supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
And in LA, I was all LeBron, man. Like LeBron, you could tell he just was snapping on the guy
How
all the time.
many coaches has that guy gone through?
He's gone through a lot. He's gone through a lot in LA. Actually, one of them was Frank Vogel, and Vogel was in the bubble with them that won the title.
You know how many? You know what's the connection there? At LeBron's, when LeBron was younger, he took a garbage Cleveland team to the finals all the time, all by himself.
Yep.
And now his age, he can't do it. So his answer to that is get me a different coach.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Well,
because before he's like, well, you can put me with a bunch of bozos in Cleveland and Kevin Love, and I'm taking them to the finals. At 39, he can't do it. So he's like, get me a different coach.
But his team is a bunch of old guys there too in L.A.
Yeah,
I know.
They're not a great team. Like,
But him at 27 can do it. Him at 39 can't
do it. Well, now, I mean, people are going to wonder, will J.J. Redick get in there? Imagine,
What?
Well, I don't know if he'll get in L.A., but Redick is interviewing
As a
I think,
what?
as a head coach. That's what's going. Like, Redick's going to be – that's where he's going. It's like Mark Jackson. It's like Steve Kerr, player into media guy into coach if he wants to. He's been – I believe the Raptors maybe interviewed him before Darko, and I know Charlotte has been interviewing him. I can't imagine he gets the job in L.A. He's too raw. But
but he's got a podcast with
LeBron. That's what I'm saying.
Connect the dots. Connect the dots.
Exactly.
I guarantee you he's saying, Bron, get me in there as the coach, and I'll change things around. That's crazy.
It's possible,
talk,
man. And then, does the podcast continue? Coach and player?
Yeah, in the hotel room.
In the hotel room, and LeBron's snapping on him about things. That'd actually be a really compelling podcast.
I think that would be awesome.
That's
like,
what
the
I'd
hell were
listen
you
to.
doing last night? Like that would be a compelling podcast.
With the counter, hey, LeBron, you went 2 for 12 from the field last night. What the hell were you doing?
Yeah. Well,
and we're recording.
You could be candid and be like, did you think of benching me? Yeah, I thought of benching you.
Because you sucked last night. And where were you last night? Because I was in the lobby hotel at 1:30 a.m. and I saw you stroll in. Where were you? That's good stuff. That's good stuff. All right, Paul MacLean coming up. Bruce Boudreau coming up today. Pierre LeBrun coming up. We got more games in the Stanley Cup playoffs. More on what happened last night. Sheldon Keefe and where the Leafs go from here. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. FanDuel, of course, has odds out for who the next head coach of the Maple Leafs will be, and Craig Berube is a pretty heavy favorite. Bruce Boudreau's on that list. Brucey's coming up in about a half an hour. Catch up with Bruce. And
maybe he'll announce it. He's the new coach.
That would be wild, man. That'd be big for us, right? If we can get Bruce to admit to that or publicly announce something.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show. Exactly.
Ultimate mic drop if he says, last time I'm doing the show in a while, boys, I'm the new head coach in T-Dot.
Yes. All right. Maybe it's possible. You got to tune in a half an hour to figure that out. Sheldon Keefe relieved of his duties today. He's had multiple people work on his staff over the years, including our next guest, former NHL player, head coach, member of the staff here in Toronto. Here's Paul MacLean. How you doing, Paul?
I'm good, guys. I'm disappointed I'm not on the list.
Yes, I think we what do you think the odds would be of you maybe being the new coach? What do you got?
I think they do pretty long.
I'll sprinkle something on it. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible.
You never know. Yeah.
You never know. Appreciate you doing this. I mean, you obviously work closely with Sheldon, and we're looking back on his time here, but seeing it behind behind the scenes and underneath the hood, whatever analogy you want to use. What was your assessment of Sheldon as a head coach?
Well, I think Sheldon as a head coach is an excellent head coach in the National Hockey League. You just look at his winning percentage. It's one of the top 3 in the game for the number of games that he's played. So his regular season record is by far exemplary. That now when you get into the playoffs is when it gets a little bit tricky. But there's been a few guys over the year that have a tricky playoff record. You remember Brian Murray and Tom Watt?
Yep.
They're two pretty good coaches that this divisional playoff that the NHL is in now, it's hard on coaches because you get stuck you're in a division, you got to play 2 rounds to get out of your division, and you're playing some good teams. Like there's a lot of good teams in the first round that get beat out. Back in the day with Brian Murray with the Washington Capitals, had to beat the Islanders and Flyers. and I was with Tom Watt in Winnipeg, we had to beat the Oilers and the Flames just to get out of our division. So the divisional playoff is very difficult, and I think that's a little bit of what's happened to Sheldon over the years is the fact that you have Boston, you have Tampa, and you have Florida, along with the Leafs in that division, and the other guys, no matter how you line up the disco balls or whatever you want to call it, they're better than you. They're just a little bit better than you, and that's what's ended up happening to Sheldon and the Leafs the last number of years is the other teams are just a little bit better.
Well, I think their idea, Paul, was that Matthews, who's the best goal scorer in the world, one of the best playmakers in the world, and one of the best sharpshooters in Nylander in the world, along with Tavares, would be able to find a way to get it done. Why, in your estimation, has that not happened?
Well, that's young players growing into the game, and I think that when you get into a playoff series, as you know, Jeff, you're playing the same guy all the time, and the other guy makes it difficult for you. Power plays, the number of power plays go from 3 to 5 a game to 1 to 3 a game, and so that it favors the defensive game and it favors the penalty kill aspect of a team. And not that these guys don't go out and try. The other teams make it difficult for them. Can they compete harder? Can they play harder? Absolutely, because they haven't got to where they need to be yet. But the process that they're in is it's a difficult one, and it's hard to gauge how quickly are you going to age into it and learn from it.
Paul, I know Rick Bowness steps down, so that makes coach number 19 in the last calendar year to vacate the position. What do you make of so many coaches being moved out and being fired and moved on from in a calendar year? What do you make of it? What the league or approach is of it with coaching now?
Well, it's coaching difficult. The league is difficult. It's difficult to win in the league. There is a lot of parity. It's a hard league to be successful in, and success is measured by making the playoffs first of all, and then having success in the playoffs. And a lot of times with salary caps, guaranteed contracts, no movement contracts, coaches don't get those. And lots of times it is the simplest thing to do is to change the voice that's in the room, and that's how it works. And as a coach, we sign up for that. We understand that going in, that if things don't go the way that everybody wants it to go, that you're going to be the first guy to go, and you accept that going in, and that's just the way the business is right now. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It creates lots of opportunity for other people to have an opportunity to be a head coach, and it's one of the greatest jobs you could ever have. I think next to playing, it's the best one I ever had. And anytime you can be involved in the National Hockey League at any level, it's great. It looks great on your resume.
So, Paul, let me ask you, if you got the job with the Maple Leafs, knowing what you know about the situation, the core four, as they call them, have been there for a long time, and the general manager said, these guys have been here a long time, you know the results, you know how they play, you know what they've done. Do you think we need to change out the core four and get different players? Also assuming that movement was less difficult with the no trade, what would your answer be?
Well, if there was no trade, you'd make changes.
Okay.
Now, you'd have to, there's the core four is good. I think they're the only core four that's 4 forwards. Most of the other core forwards that you have at least one defenseman in them. And I think that would be something that I would recommend, that one of our four needs to be a defenseman of high quality.
Right.
Like, Victor Hedman, you got Cale Makar, and those guys don't grow on trees. I understand that too. You don't just go out and get one. All the guys that have one like to keep them. But to me, the forwards is a harder to have. Is proving to be harder to have success with than having one of the four at least be a defenseman or even a goaltender, the other one of the four. Like Tampa Bay has the four. They have Stamkos, Kucherov, Hedman, and the goalie Vasilevsky.
And Point.
So,
yeah.
And then you throw in Point as the fifth guy. So it's. I mean, those. That's the type of thing that I would certainly. When I look at it, that's what I see, is that if one of those guys was a defenseman, or even a goalie, but more importantly, a defenseman, I think, would make a big difference.
With Paul MacLean, yeah, I think you're preaching to the choir up here. I think most people accept that. I would guess the Leafs and Brad Treliving and company are aware of that too. The problem is, like you said, they don't grow on trees. And, Hedman was drafted. McCarr was drafted. It's very difficult to get him. McAvoy was drafted. Like if you're a new coach, let's say you're stepping in here as the guy and you illustrate that, hey, I could use a true number one. Like, what is the likelihood of that happening outside of drafting and developing? Like, how would you expect a GM to even answer that, considering cap situations, no movement clause, and all that, and the value of a true stud number one defenseman? If you don't have it now, you probably have to draft and develop it. Do you not?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would leave that up to him because that's his job.
True, but it's an important one.
I'm just gonna ask for what I want.
I see. Okay,
to give it to me.
That makes sense. I like that job. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's way easier to do it that way.
Yes,
and I understand it's difficult. I think everyone knows that it's difficult, and deals are made all the time. Not as much as they used to be possibly made, but it's that's, in my opinion, that's what the situation calls for is something like that. And how does it happen? That's up to them. There's lots of assets. There's lots of things that you can do, and making changes is inevitable because it needs to improve in some fashion. And to me, that's the number one thing that would make it much better.
We saw a pretty interesting scene last night in the Florida-Boston game where it looked as if David Pastrnak asked for permission from Jim Montgomery to fight Matthew Tkachuk. And I'm curious if you've ever been in that position as a coach, like a player running that past you. And if so, how did that go down?
Well, I've been in that. Yeah, it's either at that time it's 6-1. Do what you got to do. Do what you got to do.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's 3-1, they go, no, past you, we might need you to shoot it in the net yet, so we don't need you gone for 5 minutes or whatever it's going to end up being. But that's part of playoff hockey as well. Is it's 6-1, whether you lose 6-1 or 1-0, it's still a loss, and you got to. And like I said earlier, you're playing against the same guy, for the next 2 weeks. You better let him know that you're not afraid of him, and you better know that. And take your opportunity when it's there. And I think it was, I agree with Paul Maurice. I thought it was great by both teams that they're standing up to one another and letting them know that they're not going away.
Now, how far does that go in the room with the guys when you see a guy who's not, known for his fighting? He's a superstar, and well, actually, both of them are superstars. But you really know that Matthew plays a little bit more of that irritable style, where Pasta is not a guy who's known to fight. What do you make of it inside the dressing room if you're the Bruins?
I think it gives all the lesser players, I guess, than Pasta. It gives them, hey, if he's doing that, I better step up and do something too. Not necessarily taking penalties or fighting guys, but he's showing his competitiveness for the team and that he wants to play for the team. And I better make sure that when I go out there, I'm doing the same thing. I think it's great for the room, and it's great for their psyche going home in a 1-1 split, trying to play at home. And I thought it was great. I thought it was great for the game, and that's what playoff hockey is all about: is two guys just battling and letting each other know that I'm not going anywhere.
Mac, what playoff hockey is not about is giving up leads. Can you believe the 3-goal leads? That's insane, isn't it?
It is. It's like when it was 3, you're up 3, you lock it down, it's over. That's the way it's supposed to be. But the players are so good. I guess it's so hard, the speed of the game. And a big factor in this is the change of the rules of the icing, and you can't change. I mean, there's a lot of goals happen off of icings can't change. The big boys come on the ice against. You get the matchup that's all mixed up, and and the second period, you add that into it, whether it's a tough change, and the one team gets the other team on the ropes, and they change, and it's amazing that there's that many. There's been. I haven't counted them, but there seems to me there's more than 3 or 4 since the playoffs started that teams have come back from at least a 3-goal lead, and that's, like you said, that's something that you don't see. But they're so skilled, they're so fast, and they keep putting it on the net.
Yeah.
What
Put it on the net.
What do you make of today's goalie? I mean, there's only about 6 or 7, really 8 number one guys that are 60-game guys. The rest are tandems. You know, would it be tougher to coach a tandem situation, or is it easier just to have, is it to have one guy, a horse that you run and trust?
Well, the way that the schedule is, I always would have liked to have a tandem. Like if I had like 2 guys, like to really go alternate the goaltender so that you always have a fresh guy. The team was there with like Boston started to do that and then got away from it. That's what I would prefer, is to have another guy you can go to rather than just having the one guy, because I know that the big factor in a lot of playoff series as well is injuries, and you don't get to pick who gets hurt, and lots of times it's your best guy or it's your goalie, and if you don't have 2 of them, it really puts you in a tough spot. So,
well, Paul, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
I was going to wrap it up. I mean, we appreciate the insight, and I think everything you just said is something that we would all agree with. I mean, that's the nature of the position and nature of the playoffs at this point. And I'm sure a lot of people checking in on you today with the Keefe news and other news around the league. So we really appreciate you answering our calls and coming on today. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, you're welcome, guys. Thanks for having me.
You got it. There he is, Paul MacLean. Paul MacLean, former NHLer, former Jack Adams winner as well. And you know what he is? He's an Islander. He's from Nova Scotia. Islander from Nova Scotia.
Love it.
We love that.
I'm standing by that. I always thought people in the East Coast were called Islanders. Mm-hmm. But I was wrong. I was clearly wrong. But I still have it in my head that, it's like watery type environments. Mm-hmm. Islander.
Yeah.
We're sticking with it, man. I like it.
Stick with it.
Hey,
Stand by
here's the
it.
thing. I thought it was like a friendly type of comment. I got hate tweets. Like, don't you ever call me an Islander. I'm like,
there's
I know it's not like slander or anything. It's not some really harsh term or anything.
It was a
like
geographical
derogatory
mistake.
Yeah,
and it was also a very bad mental mistake.
Well, and it does apply to 2 of the provinces, right? Like Prince Edward Island and Newfoundland.
And Victoria. Victoria is Islanders.
Yeah, but
they're on an island.
That's out west, dude.
I get it, but it's also it's in the bundle. It's in the bundle.
It's in the bundle. Yeah. All right, I'll give you that. There's islands up in Muskoka and Georgian Bay. They're Islanders too, right? You have a cottage up there somewhere on an island, you're an Islander.
That's
right.
right.
Not aware of the bundle. I'd never heard of the bundle
bundles.
before.
From Victoria to St. John's.
It's like online shopping.
Just a hop, skip,
Go
and a jump.
for the bundle.
Yeah.
Go
Grab
for
the bundle. Grab the bundle for 25% off. All right, Bruce Boudreau coming up in 20 minutes. Will he announce he's the next head coach of the Maple Leafs on our show?
Tune in to find out.
It's coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Bruce Boudreau in about 15 minutes. Pierre LeBrun still to come. Ryan Rishaug. Jays are off today. Knicks with another one last night. The Garden just rocking.
What a time those fans are having.
Oh, the best, man. Imagine you live in New York and you got tickets for Rangers, Knicks.
Yeah.
Like how much fun that would be. You're planning for the next month and a half, because I think one of them, I don't think the Knicks are beating Boston in the next round. I think it's possible, but I don't think. But the Rangers could cruise to a Cup final. Like, it's not going to be easy, but they look really good. They're up 2-0 on Carolina. We'll get into the goaltending change and the explanation into the 5 p.m. hour. I'm always looking for Joe Biden stuff right now with the teleprompter. Okay, there was another teleprompter issue yesterday. You guys want to hear it?
Yes, I want to.
Theology professor at the Catholic school I went to was a guy named Riley, last name. He had been drafted by the Green Bay Packers.
Riley last name. Hey, Mr. Last Name, can I go to the washroom? Riley last name, which means the scriptwriter forgot to put the last name in, but made a note to be like, I got to remember to put the last name in. I know the guy's name's Riley. And then someone threw it in the prompter, and old Joe Biden.
He's having a tough go.
He's out to lunch.
That teleprompter,
Like,
dude, it's Ron Burgundy. It is Ron Burgundy. You could write anything in there, and he is going to read that right now.
Jeez.
Riley last name. Riley last name could be the next head coach of the Maple Leafs. He's up for it. FanDuel, I think, has pretty solid odds on that. More on that into the next hour. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.